Thank you for joining us. It's Tom Lamog here, Guitars for Vets. I'm an instructor with Guitars for Vets and the Learning Center Challenge America Veteran Arts Community. You know the story. Welcome to the G4V Guitar Shop, where this hour, our panel of guitar instructors and guitar learners will be focusing on more of the popular folk and bluegrass instruments that players are curious about, including the 12-string acoustic guitar, fiddle, and violin. Both bass types, whether it be stand-up and electric, a variety of ukuleles, and the pedal steel. So today's conversation should provide you with some insight on which guitar skills might be transferable to this new instrument, considerations for acquiring one, and tips on practicing and other things that our instructor panel can share about their personal journey with these instruments. But before we share any more, before we go any further, I need to bring in my partner in crime, our co-host, Daniel B. Hey, mister.
What up, everyone?
You're looking way cool. Doing? With the Marshall stack behind you. You've have you missed, did you miss doing this? I mean, it's been a couple of months, and it's given us some time. It's really given us some time to think about, of all the topics within a guitar shop, what do we cover? And it seemed natural, didn't it, to just continue on the last conversation, which, you know, we had featured banjo, we had Danny Smith on mandolin, and then of course Bruce also did dobro along with banjo. And it's kind of like, wait, there are more instruments out there. So we've got a lot of curious folks who are curious, you know, about what instruments are next. You know, what do you think? What do you think about that?
I'm telling you,
is that what you're hearing?
You know, thank God Bruce knows all these different instruments, or we probably wouldn't have any subject matter.
Yeah,
Thank you
Bruce.
very much, so Bruce. But yes, you know, we really strive to bring on a real knowledgeable program to show what's out there for the options on guitar itself and stringed instruments now, and the type of genres, because we do get into different genres. So it's just been so far an amazing journey especially with you, Mr. Lamog. I really have appreciated you bringing me along on the ride.
Are you kidding? I wouldn't do it without. This is too fun. It's we talk offline, and it goes not for just a few minutes. It really lasts almost an hour, sometimes a couple of hours, just about what about this and what about that, and we bring in our experiences, which is what we're hoping that you're also going to pick up on from our instructor panel. And speaking of instructor panel, I'd like to bring back Bruce Bjork, who's also Guitars for Vets instructor. Hey, Bruce, what are you going to be sharing with us today?
I'm going to talk about the pedal steel.
The pedal steel. Now, prominent, I know, from my Hawaiian background, a lot of pedal steel in Hawaiian music. But what about you? What are you finding the genres using pedal steel?
Most of the stuff I play is like classic country, but also a lot of Americana. You know, the Grateful Dead, New Riders of the Purple Sage. I mean, there's pedal steel with Simon and Garfunkel and Elton John. I mean, it's all over the place. People know what it is, and when they hear it, they have no idea that it looks like this. And actually, when I play out, people come up to me and like, what the heck is that thing? You know?
Okay, very cool. Well, we're looking forward to you taking over the screen here and sharing what it is that you know about the pedal steel. I'd like to now introduce to you Guitars for Vets graduate Abby Madden. And Abby, let's see here. Let's bring you on here and welcome you. I know that this is your first presentation on Guitar Shop and for G4V, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up playing the cello because my that's just the tradition of my family. The younger sister plays cello and the older sister plays violin. So I was kind of pigeonholed into that at an early age. And then when I joined the army, the cello wasn't easy to transport, so I kind of put that aside and then picked up a violin initially. And my aunt, who plays violin, rented a violin for me. It was one of those rent to own deals from Vermont Violins and sent it to me in Iraq on my deployment. So over there, that was kind of my way to relax at the end of a long day and, learn something new in my downtime, which was nice. And then I continued it. So it's been really nice.
Well, it's great having you.
Mhm.
We got one more instructor joining us, and that would be Charley Sabatino. And you may know Charley from some of our live event presentations. Maybe you were a student of his. He is Mr. Bass, all things bass to us. Charley, oh, you're so humble. Welcome, Charley. How are you?
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for all of you for your service. I am not a veteran, though I'm very honored to be here and to help where I can.
And you're going to be featuring which instruments today?
I'm going to be featuring the bass, either string or electric or upright, just to give an idea of where I think it should be in terms of adding another instrument. In my case, it's my primary instrument. It's what I do for a living. What the benefits are and the differences in between the two in terms of playing, finances, space, that kind of stuff.
And you're fairly prominent in the industry, having not only key relationships with music vendors, but also traveling as well too.
I've been lucky.
That's where I met you. I think I met you at the NAMM show at the
Right,
Yamaha
because I'm a
booth.
Yamaha performance artist. That's what
Yeah,
you saw me.
yeah,
I
that's
hold a
awesome.
master's degree in music. I'm an adjunct professor at one of the City University of New York, Bjork College here in Queens. I live in New York City.
We're thrilled to have you, man. Thank you for all of you for joining us, and for those of you who are students who are wanting to learn to play a second instrument. This show really is dedicated to you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and throw the first question out to the panel with regards to today's conversation and learning the next instrument. Each of you play guitar. I'm hoping. I'm assuming. And we'll be sharing another instrument that you've learned to play. But which came first for you? Was it the guitar that basically said, I've learned this enough, I want to move on to the next instrument? Or was it another instrument that eventually led you to a guitar? Who wants to go first? All right, Bruce.
My first instrument was the piano. I started playing piano when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old. And then I picked up the guitar in the early 60s, and it just, it just exploded from there, guitar, banjo, dobro, mandolin, and then I eventually took up the pedal steel, which I consider my money instrument. I get paid to play the pedal steel because hardly anyone plays it. I mean, it's incredibly hard to learn how to play. It's a very, very hard instrument, but it has the most beautiful sound.
You're a
I,
man in demand for sure, I'll tell you.
I played dobro for like 40 years, and that's very similar. You're playing with a steel bar and picks, so I really had had a jump start on it. The difference is the dobro is tuned GBD, GBD. Pedal steel, there's 10 strings. They're all tuned differently, and
Mhm.
I'll get into that.
Oh, very good. Abby, I know you had a really interesting story when we were planning for the show. Uh, any thoughts, anything that you would like to add in terms of which came first? Guitar, cello?
Yeah, I mean, cello was first for me, but I just gravitated towards the guitar because so many of the songs that I grew up loving, I guess you could say I'm kind of the era of 80s kids that grew up with parents that listened to Woody's Children, if you remember that radio program in the
Oh, yeah.
evenings,
Oh, my.
and
Oh,
so a lot of folk music. And I just, guitar features primarily in a lot of those songs. And so I said, well, I'm going to have to learn how to play guitar, and Guitars for Vets was the perfect opportunity.
And your instructor was.
And my instructor was amazing. And he's not just paying me to say that, but it was Bruce.
The best. Yeah. Awesome. Let me throw out the next question. How much time had passed before you decided to learn your next instrument? And I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
I'll start off with this one first. So for me, just like Bruce, piano was the first instrument that I was exposed to, and it took me 10 years to learn everything I needed to, from, how to use left and right hands, getting all of the things you need to know about music theory. And then by that time, I was able to take some of that knowledge and apply it to the trumpet in elementary school, and then clarinet. Both of them are in the same key. I could use the same concepts. And that was like 5 years into piano lessons. And I didn't really get until into high school where I finally got to touch my guitar, my first guitar. So there was a little bit of time. I felt a little more comfortable knowing that I had the music theory pieces under my belt before I could move on to the next. But thoughts, anyone who wants to add to that?
I've actually tried a few different instruments besides guitar. I mean, I can play on them. I can make noise with them. If I had to play a song, I could learn it quick enough. I have the laptop steel, which is just a piece of wood and some pickups and strings, which is you hear it a lot in on contemporary music. Walk Don't Run was done with the lap steel, wasn't it? If I believe right, not a pedal steel. Or not Walk Don't Run. Yeah, it was Walk Don't Run or Sleepwalk, which I can't remember which.
Sleepwalk.
Yeah, that was it. Sleepwalk. There was I play a little mandolin. I've always loved the mandolin, mainly because of playing 12 string, which I have right here, and
That must be the instrument you'll be demoing today.
I think it might be. And the thing we should have called this is instruments with frets and without frets, because we have
We'll get that in post-production.
violin, yeah, the pedal steel, and the upright. Which I will have a question for Charlie: is which do you prefer, fretless or fretted? You can get into that later, Charlie. But it's to learn the different instruments. It's kind of like also I can do a little piano too. Piano has helped me to understand theory. So it's
all laid out for you.
it's just a lot of fun to be able to just, hey, I feel like playing the mandolin today. Let me just get on it. Or I feel like messing around with my pedal steel. Or I'm looking for a really full sound today, so I'll get out my 12.
Which is why you got the Marshall stacks behind you there.
Exactly.
Neighbors must love you.
I want everybody to hear me.
Hey, Abby, did you have something to add to that? Oh, there you go.
Actually, when I was 14, I had a big fight with my mom, and I quit the cello, and I ran away overnight because I had to teach her a lesson, right? So they were probably sick with worry, and I still regret it to this day, but I essentially quit. But I still did have music in my life. I played piano, and then this is, a little bit of a nerd alert, but I grew up playing handbells in my church quite seriously, honestly. Yeah, ding ding.
That's the
Yeah.
coolest thing ever.
I'm thinking of
You're my
Miss
hero.
Congeniality for some reason. I don't know why.
Cool. I love it.
So, if you want to check out our recordings, the Katona Celebration Ringers, starting with a K, we have a fun Christmas album. So, yeah.
Right? Oh, cool. That counts. Instrument.
Yeah, it counts.
Yeah. Let me go on to the next question. And Charlie, I'm going to throw this one at you. The biggest challenge you remember about picking up a new instrument?
Me, I started on guitar because I was raised in a very small town in New Jersey, and there were no one to teach me. So I picked up the guitar. So the hardest thing was to get somebody to teach me. And what happened is the guitar teacher said, "Oh, I'll teach you." And what I have found, I apologize to all the guitar players, but what I found is when guitar players teach bass players, there's a lot of issues to be had.
What's the number one issue that you can think of? Because I've seen that happen
Posture.
before. You play guitar, why don't you just play bass?
Posture is the biggest one. These instruments will hurt you if you play them wrong. They will hurt you and hurt you bad.
Oh, wow. Good.
Because
Like
they're
it
big.
falls on you? Is that what you're talking or
No,
is just the
it's-
playing it?
I'm
It's
talking
just
about, tendons and joints and arthritis and carpal tunnel and trigger finger. I can go on forever.
a very physically engaging instrument is what it
That's why
sounds
for
like.
my upright teachers, my upright students, the first thing I give them are push-ups and sit-ups.
Hey,
If
Charlie,
you don't have a strong core, you're not going to play that instrument.
we have a request, Charlie, for you to turn up your microphone if you can,
sorry.
if you can do that. Hopefully,
Is that
that'll
better?
work. Hey, thank you. I think we can hear. We can. Hey, Matt, can you hear him? Okay, now
Is that better?
you. Okay, I think he gave us the
I think
thumbs.
yeah, 'cause
Yes.
I'm almost going yellow, so I want to make sure I'm
There
good.
you are. Hey, it's because
So
because
the
you're
thing
hot.
the thing becomes for me it was trying, and so I did some of that for a while, and it took me a while to find an actual teacher, and he had to fix a lot of things. But that was the biggest part for me, was finding somebody to help me to learn. I mean, I had some friends that helped me and stuff, but I'm you want to go nerd alert, Abby? I'm the biggest nerd on the planet. I wanted to learn the theory. I wanted to learn all the stuff behind it, and because I wanted to go to school. And so trying to find somebody to do that for me was very difficult, at least where I lived. Plus I had zero support at home. So that made it hard as well. So yeah, for me, it was just finding people to help me to get where I had to get to.
All right. Anyone else want to add to that? Like, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we're at that point now where we can move into the different instruments themselves. And so each of us are going to go ahead and present. I'm going to go ahead and remove the spotlight from everyone. And I get to go first. Now, this instrument right here. This is it. I got this instrument here. Let me tell you a little bit about this ukulele. First of all, I know correct pronunciation by many is ukulele. But if you really want to know the right way to pronounce it, just strum it. There you go. That's right pronunciation right there. My dad, a Hawaiian, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran who served in Korea. As a child, I remember him playing the ukulele. And I'm going to just call it ukulele from this point out, or uke, even though we know it's pronounced ukulele. I remember him sitting down with my uncles and jamming and singing and have a great time. And that kind of left an impression upon me. But by the time I was ready to learn to play an instrument, they pushed me towards piano. My parents pushed me towards the piano, not the ukulele. It was like, okay, well, sure, why not? That sounds like fun. And I got to tell you, I just dreaded it. I just dreaded the idea of playing piano because it was so structured, and you start off with the real traditional style of music from the composers, Bach, Beethoven, and so on. And at that time, it's kind of like, well, I'm not really interested in that, but I don't want to play ukulele either because that doesn't seem like a really cool instrument. And then as time went on, finally I'm in high school and I get my first guitar. My dad bought me my first guitar. So it took me a few years to finally get there. And to be honest with you, I really didn't seriously think about playing the uke until probably until 3 or 4 years ago. My uncle, who I was closest to, lived on Oahu, played the ukulele. He had passed. And at that time, I didn't really think about ukulele until at the ceremony, there were some uke players. It's like, wow, you know what? As I'm watching them play, it's like some of those are guitar chords. I bet I can do that. So I ended up purchasing this Luna. It's a Luna Vineyard. It's a concert ukulele. There were at least 4 that we're going to kind of introduce you to today. It's a Luna Vineyard. It's a koa top. It's got the koa back and the sides. It's also got a built-in, pickup as well too. Why did I get this instead of something that may have been a plastic or maybe a lower cost? Because this one cost Cost me about $450. Because when my dad passed, just last year, I also decided to, for him and for my other relatives as well, too, my Hawaiian relatives, that I'm going to make this a part of my, journey with music. So anyway, that's when I picked it up just 4 years ago or so. Let me tell you some things that may be of interest to you. You know the pronunciation, ukulele. I call it uke. That's how I was raised. Ukulele, I didn't really pronounce it the Hawaiian way, but nowadays it's so popular that people will know it better as ukulele. They're very popular, easy to pick up. They're really light compared to a guitar. The guitar is kind of like, you're comfortable holding it, but this is really super light. They're also nylon strings. They're forgiving on your fingertips. You don't have to press as hard, which is pretty awesome. For me, like I said, I want to perform with my band, and also I ended up getting the electronics to go with it, but you don't have to. There's wood, and there's ukuleles that are made of plastic. The uke's got the better tone. It's got better resonance, and the plastic, if you don't mind playing the plastic, it doesn't sound nearly as loud for some. It's resistant to humidity and weather. It's a lot cheaper. That's a consideration. The electric, acoustic, you got a couple of different versions, just like electric. And let me tell you about the four different sizes, if you will. So this one, like I said, is a concert, which is slightly larger than the soprano. And the soprano is the smallest size uke. The concert, of course, it's a little bigger in length. It's got a little more space on the fretboard itself, so you can put your fingers around the neck. I use this primarily for strumming because it's just a little too small for me to kind of solo on it. That's when we get into something a little bigger. A little bigger would be the tenor, which is slightly larger. And if you go even larger than that, that would be the baritone. And that baritone, that's a baritone right behind me, sitting next to my Martin. So those are the four different sizes. The tuning, it's G, C, E, and A for the smaller three ukuleles. So G, C, E, A, right? G, C, E, and A. Except for the baritone. Baritone is tuned just like the top four strings of guitar, right? And you know the names. That would be D, G, B, and E. So you can pick that off the wall and play it like a guitar, play the guitar chords, just like a D, you play it like a D. The difference, though, with picking up, these, the concert, the tenor, and the soprano, is here's what I want you to visualize. I want you to visualize taking your capo and putting it on the 5th fret of your guitar and then name those notes on those strings. And they're basically the same. So, you've got the knowledge of the chord shapes. And if you know the knowledge of the chord shapes, you can apply those chord shapes directly onto, like for me, for this particular, this is a D form, right? A D form of the chord. But if you pretend you've got that capo on the 5th fret, this is really a G chord using the D form, right? All right. And then if you're this A form here, if you were to, again, visualize on the guitar neck that you're playing this first finger on the 7th fret, because you've got a capo on the 5th fret. All right, that would be a D, and that would be your E, and this is an E form. That's your A. So if you know your open chords and you know those shapes above the 5th fret, you can actually start picking up to play the ukulele today if you wanted to. So tiny bubbles in the wine makes me happy, makes me feel fine. Tiny bubbles makes me warm all over. Songs that my dad used to sing to us. Anyway, that's the ukulele, and pricing could be anywhere from 50 to $3,000. Definitely, I bought mine over at Guitar Center of all places because I really like this Luna brand with the Koa, just to kind of celebrate tradition with my family as well. So get out there, experiment with it, have fun with it. You can, a lot of people are playing popular songs with this. I've got my toes in the water, ass in the sand, not a worry in the world, a cold beer in my hand. Life is good today. Life is good today, and it'll be great for you too. So, anyway, that's ukulele. If you have any questions, Charlie, I love.
He played in the volcano.
Oh, you're so funny.
If you've ever been to Hawaii back then, he played in the volcano for years.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, my dad knew them all, that's for sure. All right, so let me introduce you now to Abby Madden, and she's going to take you through the journey of fiddle, violin, and everything else that her experience has brought her. So take it away, Abby. It's all yours.
So I know everyone's first question is what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin? And the main difference is the bridge right here. So you can see that my bridge is a fiddle bridge. A violin bridge would arc a little bit higher. Same strings, just a little bit flatter bridge. And the reason for that is so that, oh, Bruce, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah. Also, the difference is you can spill beer on a fiddle, not a violin.
Ah, that's true. I'll give you that. And then, well, also too, I don't know if anyone's seen like some old fiddling photos, but a lot of times you'll see fiddle players play with the fiddle positioned like almost in the middle of their chest,
Yep.
which I find uncomfortable. I'm not sure how they did that. I actually have what they call a shoulder rest on mine so that it's a lot more comfortable and I can put my chin on the chin rest here a little bit more comfortably. Yeah, so the bridge difference is for hitting the strings with your bow. So that's something I didn't show you yet. So when I have a lower bridge, here, I'll put the musician mode on. When I have a lower bridge, that means I can hit multiple strings at once more easily. So that's when you get the traditional fiddle sound, the do, right? And then you start off your band, right? So that makes it a lot easier. With the higher bridge, you can do it. You just need to dig in a little bit more with your bow. And I wanted to add here a note, kind of to what Tom was saying about cost, right? Of a good violin or student level violin can start around $299 and up, right? And then bow is personal preference. This is going to be additional to what you pay for the actual instrument. So that's good to keep in mind if you are interested in doing, I would say, any stringed bowed instrument. Sometimes the bows can be very pricey. And if
Yes.
you know, yeah, I'm sure you know, Charlie, right?
Don't even go there.
And if you're familiar with export laws right now, a lot of bows have things like turtle shell, ivory, restricted materials that have been built into them. So you will not be able to send them overseas if that's something you desire to do. Just something to think about.
Hey, Abby, let me ask you, when you first buy your fiddle or violin, do you have to be custom fitted with? Because I know that my daughter, when she took lessons, it seemed to look like a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, so just like any instruments, they make, 3/4 size, half size, and it's really depending on, how far your fingers can reach. If you're a child, the tendency is to start on half size and then move up from there as you grow. I have a local violin shop that has, little baby violins, and they're just so cute. But I could never even try to play those, right? Because my hands are too big. Um, and then some of you may have heard of the Suzuki method. That's a string method that a lot of string teachers teach using. That will actually have you start off with a violin made out of a box and rubber bands, which is kind of funny. So you're not even using a bow at that point. You're doing what we call plucking. So you're just going like this. And that's when you get those initial songs like kids play hot cross buns and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember the term pizzicato too for some reason.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the kind of cool thing about the bow is that you can do a lot of different tones, right? You can play softly, you can play loudly, you can kind of like have that quick bowing back and forth that brings up suspense in your song. There's a lot of techniques that go into bowing. The one thing I'd say, if you're thinking about transitioning from guitar to something like a stringed instrument with the bow, is just realize, it's a little bit different of a muscle that you're using, right? So you're using your bow mainly to make music. The way you hold the bow matters, right? Maybe Charlie will go into this with his presentation, but you're not supposed to touch the hair of the bow because you don't want to get your your finger oils onto the hair of the bow. This is actually horsehair. And then often people will use rosin, which is from pine trees, to kind of make the bow grip the string a little bit more firmly. Yep, there's Charlie's right there, yep.
Happen to have it right there.
He knows all about it, yeah. And then, conversely, because here, I'll show you what my rosin looks like. Because rosin, it's essentially kind of like a rock, right? You can see that it's shiny, but so it transfers like a fine white powder onto the hairs of your bow. And then because you're playing sometimes with emphasis or even, slowly, those powders or particles can go onto the wood of your violin or your instrument, and you really have to make sure that you clean that off afterwards because it can eat away the resin or the varnish on your instrument after a while. So that's good to know just for maintenance.
Hey, Abby, so some of the things that you might remember when you first started to learn to play, what are some of the challenges, and did it take you long to overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, so I think because I started off with the cello, I was used to positioning my fingers a lot more far apart, right? So I felt very scrunched initially, and that took some training and lots of scales. Let's just be honest, scales is not really the most exciting thing to do, but it is helpful when we're talking about muscle memory and knowing where to place your hands on the fingerboard. That was kind of tough. And then this might just be me personally, but tuning, these pegs are wooden, right? And they look kind of delicate, right? And I'm so scared of tuning too much and popping a string. That's like my nightmare. But I kind of had to get over that and just, figure out how to tune in a way that wasn't too rough for the violin, but that I could get, the note that I wanted. And then luckily for me, my violin has these small fine tuners at the bottom, so that, once I get close to the main note, then I can go down here and fine tune. so I don't have to really crank the tuning
Do
too
you
much.
change your own strings?
I I have tried,
Uh,
and it's not easy, so I usually take it to a luthier to have them do it for me.
I
Sounds a
do that
little
too, and I'm not a
bougie, but
violin player.
yeah. Getting the initial part wound around the peg correctly, I think that's where I have hiccups because knowing that a lot of the strings will overlap here in the scroll, I want to make sure that the string is lined up correctly. Maybe
All
that's me being
right.
OCD.
Anything that you can carry over from guitar into fiddle or vice versa? Like
Yeah, so
chord
there's a lot
charts
of
or
times with guitar where you'll be kind of finger picking, and I don't know if anyone else does this, but maybe I have to hit first finger on the E string, and then I know that immediately after I'll hit first finger on the A string, right? So I can just quickly kind of overlap my finger onto both strings and kind of wobble back and forth. That's the technical term, right? Um,
the professional term.
and it does sound lazy, but it's more practical, right? Because you're going back and forth between strings quickly. And a lot of times with guitar we do that too. So maybe you're hitting a D chord, let's say, and right after you're gonna hit a G chord, right? So are you gonna move that ring finger? Probably not, you know. You're just gonna slide it, or you're gonna, lift it just to get your other fingers in place.
Something like
Um,
ease and convenience, kind of like for
exactly,
guitar
yeah,
players. Why do you want to move all four of your fingers when you could just move one finger? And
exactly. You have to be
cool.
strategic about it, right? So I think that's easily transferable. And then, music is music, right? With violin, you're mostly reading treble clef, which is the same as guitar, I believe. So you're gonna be, if you are reading music, you can easily read it again on violin. Yeah.
Okay. Well, real good. Well, hey, Dan's got a question. And if this carries, because hey, Charlie, you're on deck, so get ready here. How do you fret the instrument? How difficult is it to tune with those wooden pegs? You can pass
Yeah.
that to Charlie if you want, because we're going to be talking to him shortly, if you want. But you're
Okay,
welcome to go
well,
ahead and give it a shot as well.
I will give it a quick shot, and I did want to play a little something more
Oh
than what
yeah,
I
of
did.
course. By all means, go for it.
Fretting the instrument is different. This is a smooth uh, board, right? When you first begin, you'll see a lot of students will actually put like electric tape or a very skinny version of that on their board so that they can know where to easily place their first finger. And then from there, you have first position, second, third, fourth. Um, and, I don't think I've ever played as far up as here, but you certainly could if you really had the gumption to, right? So I just wanted to play you quick,
All right.
kind of a little bit of a Shokin farewell. And just so you know, Bruce and I talked about doing a duet, but we thought it might be hard on Zoom. So I think he's going to play a little sampling of it. And if anybody wants to read the Civil War uh, letter in the background, please feel free.
All right. All right. That's
So I just love
wonderful.
that piece. It's so pretty. But yeah, it's a fun thing, and kind of what we were talking about before. You can play fiddle in so many styles. There's jazz fiddle. There's Irish fiddling, country, you name it, right? And it's just a really fun, diverse instrument, just like guitar.
Oh man, Abby, thank you for this tour. It's
Thank you.
a nice little overview. Thank you for sharing your experiences, along the way. And those are interesting stories that you were sharing for sure. All right, so hang on. Yeah, I mean, we'll have you definitely come back here as we close the show. I think we're going to kind of run into overtime today. Hopefully, you're getting a lot of good information from these conversations that we're having about each of these instruments. Next up, Charley Sabatino, and he's going to be a big bass guitar behind him, as well as the bigger stand-up bass. Charley, take it away. Tell us more.
Okay. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the fretless versus the fretted. Intonation, which is the term, is a skill, just like singing in pitch or anything like that. It's more than one thing. One of my teachers talked to me. It was called tune, tone, and time. It was 3 things. Okay. It's not only where your finger is, making sure the tone is actually full and complete, and you're doing in time. A lot of players do what Abby said about the positions. My teachers kind of stayed away from those, especially coming from a jazz background, because you're not playing when you're playing jazz. I am going as using the entire board. So I was taught you learn the tune, you learn the notes through repetition. So things like using a drone and playing against the drone. One of my teachers, who was a guitar player, taught me an amazing ear training exercise that I teach my students and in here in Guitars for Vets, that brings the brain to the hands as opposed to the hands to the brain. And you hear the notes, almost like having perfect pitch. You hear the note before you play it. So intonation becomes an entire education. As I hit my microphone, I apologize. All right, so the reason for doing bass, or even another instrument, okay? Anthony Persichetti, who is an author and teacher, former teacher, I think, at Juilliard, talks about all music is moving voices. So it's not all about the bass, unlike what Megan Trainor says. It's not all about the guitar. It's all about all of it. So the more instruments you play, and I think Bruce can be in this too, the more sensitive to you are to all the music. It's like when you get a guitar guy who makes a record and it's amazing guitar solos and stuff around it. It's not that. It's music in its entirety. An amazing musician and educator, Heather, who's in Portugal, is a good friend of mine, says, nobody goes to the orchestra and goes, wow, that viola part. No, unless they're viola players. It's the whole thing. So the more instruments you know, the more sensitive you are to the music in general. Like they say, a good actor knows everybody's part, right? So it's understanding that what you play isn't just what you play. It's your interaction with the other musicians. And it's that to the intimate sense. Ornette Coleman, you may have heard of, calls it harmonics. William Parker, who's another musician, calls it universal tonality. It's understand that it's the whole thing. We're really happy that you can do this really simple, really cool trick, but what does it do for the music? That kind of thing. So I'm going to get into the instruments. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the electric, okay? The difference between this one and with guitar is that it's longer scale. The notes are farther apart. The strings are thicker. So it's much more physical to play. Okay. It's primarily a single note instrument, right? Sometimes you can play double, you can play some chords. I only use it when I'm teaching because I'm a lousy piano player. It's probably, like I said, and there's other techniques to use for it. The fingering tends to be similar to the upright because of the distance. I happen to have a 5-string out today because that's what I was teaching with today. But they go 4, 5, and 6 string. I've played them all. They're tools. You use what you use. Just like you were talking the different ukuleles, you use the one you need. All right. If you were going to be playing in a dance band or what we call in New York City a club date band, weddings and parties, you're going to need that. You're going to need that low B because you're going to be playing a lot of dance music, right? If you're playing in a classic rock band, you probably don't need it, right? One of my buddies plays on Tommy on Broadway and got nothing but hate mail because he was playing a 5-string, right? Because John Entwistle never used the 5-string, but the play was orchestrated for a 5-string bass. So he was playing what he needed, you know. So you play what you need. There's no prowess or value judgment. You want to play a 5, you want to play a 4, you want to play a 6. It depends on your budget. And the beauty of this, of the bass, which would say the same thing with guitar, is you can get on board for a couple of $100, right? And I mean, I have students who come here with guitars, basses that are like $200 or $300. I could do a gig with tomorrow. They're fine. All right. This one happens to be I'm endorsed by Lakeland, and this one happens to be a custom one with another one with Koa top and rosewood board. It was made for me, roasted flame neck, But you can get away with a lot less money. All right. Some of the techniques are a little different. You probably heard, right? The slap technique, right? That kind of stuff. There's obviously pizzicato, but that's pretty much what this is. Any questions?
Hey, can you elaborate on the term drone?
Oh, okay. So pitch is relative, right? So we use, the A440, so everything works off of that, right? If you were in box time, I think you used 445, right? It's all relative. So what you do is you play a C note. I have a website that plays a C note, and I'll do it on the electric because it's easier. So what I would do on the upright is that against the C note, I would play the C scale. And what you do, you hear what the C sounds like against the C. The D sounds like against the C. The E. So you know what the notes sound like against the home chord. Because it's not just playing the main note, because it becomes what's a 9, what's a 3, what's an 11, that kind of thing. And you do that in different keys. I've been doing that exercise every day for 35 years. And I'm going to do it tomorrow. Actually, I don't do it Sunday. I'll do it Monday. But I've been doing that exercise for 35 years, and it never ends. Because intonation is asymptotic. It never goes away. Okay. Any questions based on that? Yeah, Bruce.
Another note on the drone, like I play the 5-string banjo, and that 5th string is a G,
right?
Which is the highest note on it. So when I'm playing the banjo, if I'm playing in the key of G, I'll keep hitting that high G, and it becomes a drone note.
Yeah, it makes it easier, because if not, I find, Abby, because you said that the players that use the strips, they become dependent on them. Unless you're 9. No, I'm not talking about little children. I'm talking about they become dependent on them, and they keep looking. And it's like, no, you got to know what a C is. You got to know what a G is. And as it gets more complicated, again, coming from a jazz background, it's not just a C anymore. It's a C7 flat 9 or a C7, sharp 9. And then you have to think about all those higher notes, and you got to hear them. And you got to build on that skill. That's why, like I said, I do it. I call it the Rikers Island method, which is the prison here in New York. I do a key and then I cross it off. Like the cartoons when they used to do the. I've been doing that for 35 years, and I'm a lunatic. First of all, I'll be the first to tell you. But that intonation is one of those things. So we're going to switch over to the any questions? We'll switch over to the upright.
Sounded good, man.
I'm going to switch over to the upright cam. See if it does it. Yes. Okay. So the upright, the biggest problem we have with the upright, there's a couple of things. And I'm going to be honest. Oh, let me just move my mic. I'm going to be honest about this. I've had many students wanting to change from electric to upright. And there's a couple of things I always tell them about. First of all is the obvious thing. Size. It's big. And this is actually a small one. Actually, Abby, you were talking about different sizes. This is a 3/4. 3/4 is the standard most of the time you see, but they go down to 1/8. One of my teachers, Dr. Christie, was this tall, 100 pounds soaking wet after a full meal. When he played jazz, he played a child's bass. When he played in the orchestra, he had a full size, but he had a child's bass because he was so little. But this is a small 3/4. This is considered small. My main bass is a 7/8. It's the size of a 3-bedroom apartment. It's tremendous. When I buy a car, I bring my bass with me. Scares the hell out of car dealers. The other problem we have is the size as well. Electric basses are between 34 and 35 inch scale. This is 41. So the notes are even farther apart. So you have to remember your intonation is different because now F to G is a lot farther away. All right. The posture is different. Now I'm playing like here, and if you notice, it's very physical. You gotta. If you do the posture wrong, I've had people play like this, and they get hurt. Okay. Any other question?
Yeah, we can.
Make sure I get this right.
So, hey, Charlie, are you able to transfer skills from the electric to the stand-up and vice versa? I mean, is it the same type of playing?
Same notes. It's the same notes, but the posture is different. So a lot of it is physical. The differences are physical, not musical. Now, there are some things because it's fretless, and you know this, Abby, is vibrato, which, for as far as I'm concerned, is why I play this instrument, because the vibrato is the sexiest thing in the world.
That sounds awesome.
Right? And especially if you do it with the bow. My rosin is, I hate this weather. That's the other thing, it's affected by weather so much. Now, if that ain't a reason to play it, I don't know what is.
Hey, so let me ask you this, Charlie. I know this may sound silly, why are there not more string basses in popular music? Is electric bass just more convenient?
I think it's just style. Why are there not more 12-string electric guitar, acoustic guitars in? It's style. I mean,
Yeah,
in my career, up until about 2012, my career was 85% electric, 15% upright. Somewhere in 2012, it switched around. Why? I don't know.
All right.
You know, you go through the door that's open, right? One of the last things, a couple of things I want to talk about. The last thing is the problem with this instrument, and I think it's more so than any of the other instruments we've talked about, except maybe the pedal steel, is cost. Okay, you can get, like we talked about, you can get away with an electric guitar, electric bass, a couple of $100. I would be uncomfortable with a student grade upright less than about $3,000. I would be very uncomfortable with anything less than that because you're going to put in about $1,000 to get it to work. Bows, same idea. You know, bows, you could probably get away with a couple of $100, but you got to be careful. All right. The carbon fiber ones are pretty good. The fiberglass ones are pretty good, but these are one of the things you change your taste in them as you go. I find. I tend to play German, which is underhand. Bass can also be French as well. I play German because that was the first one that was handed to me. There's the maintenance involved. I mean, a rehair on this, I just had it done. It was $200. Strings on electric, $30, $40, maybe $50. These go from $250 to $600, depending on what you get.
How often do you change your strings on that stand-up?
I don't change them very often. I've actually been changing them more often lately because I'm in a relationship with Perastro, and they're doing different strings, and I'm converting to them as they manufacture them. It's a different gauge. It's a long-winded thing not to get into. But I'll change them every couple of years maybe because I play a lot. You know, I practice 4 or 5 hours a day, plus teaching, plus gigging, because I'm nuts.
Well, and I want to interrupt here really quick. It's a little bit different than changing guitar strings because in the middle of the instrument, you have a sound post, and I do too in the violin. And so the risk there is if you take all the strings off at once, your bridge is going to fall and be out of whack, and then you can risk having the sound post fall at all. So it's a really kind of precarious process. You want to do one at a time, ideally. Yeah.
I changed my electric strings by myself. I don't do the upright. First of all, because you need a drill because it's so many windings. And the one time I tried, I actually cut myself pretty bad because the strings are pretty aggressive. So usually, I usually if I'm going to change my strings, I make it in the. I do usually like when I'm getting the thing maintained, I'll have them do it. See if there's anything else. Oh yeah, I'm talking about cost. The case, especially this bass, the bass behind me, I purchased in 2021. It took me 25 years to save for it. It's cost more than my car. Literally 25 years. The case cost me $650. The case. And that's how much they cost. It's not, mine wasn't super deluxe it's just how much they cost.
Oh man, yeah.
You know,
so there's some investments that
everything
you have
about
to
it
make.
is money. So if you're going to decide to do this, I tell students, first of all, rent a bass because you can rent one for, $100. See if you really like it, and then go from there. I think
Charlie,
Yes.
what are the woods that are used on the upright basses? They
Okay.
look so pretty.
Most of the time, because the bass has been around for 500 years, so most of the time it's maple, and spruce. All right, I've seen them with willow. I've seen them with oak. This neck happens to be beech. My Panormo is flame maple. Because they come from so many different countries and so many different ages. Like, this one is from like 1960. That one's from 1920. So, and that one's from France, and this is from Czechoslovakia. Different craftsmen, just like the violin, and actually guitars too. I mean, how many different woods do they use for guitars, right? But usually it's maple and spruce, and then they also have, these are bowed. Both of these are what they call carved instruments. They took a piece of wood and then they carved the curve out of it. Other ones they have are plywood, not like Home Depot plywood, but I mean they're plywood. Plywood is much more durable. It's much more maintenance free. Some people say the sound isn't as good. The carved ones I have to worry in the winter because I live in New York City. I have a humidifier that in the winter, if this was the winter, that would be cranking because I got to keep the humidity above 40% or the instrument will crack. I had a teacher move to a senior center as he got older, and one of his instruments cracked because the senior center was kept warmer than, say, a regular apartment.
What about the fingerboard? Is the fingerboard ebony?
Yeah, this one is ebony. I've seen them in rosewood, like some of the K basses. They're in rosewood. Usually they're ebony or rosewood. I think I've seen one or two in lighter woods, but it's very rare. They have to take a lot of abuse. Mm-hmm. Oh, the other thing too about the instrument, the posture is different in terms of as when you play. When I play upper register, there I just go up. Here I have to go into what they call thumb position, which is a totally different thing, and it's all posture again.
My other question is, what are the bridges made out of? Is there certain woods that do certain things, or is there a standard?
I think they're maple. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Don't know.
They're awful thin and they hold up really well, so that's what I was thinking. It had to be a nice hardwood.
Well, a lot of it is physics, and it's been 500 years. They kind of get it down,
Yeah, right.
Okay, all right. Hey, Charlie, thank you very much
Thanks,
for giving
Charlie.
us this tour. What a wonderful instrument. I mean, actually, electric bass, love it, but that stand-up
All I've
bass,
ever wanted to
sexy.
All I've ever wanted to play.
All right. Okay, so we got a couple more instruments to go. Dan, let's take you last. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and we'll get Bruce because the thing that Bruce has to share with us The pedal steel itself.
Go with that.
Not a whole lot of, not a whole lot of players out there. At least in my travels, and Dan, let's I'm going to get you on screen here to comment on this as well too. We've both been playing in bands, and it's trying to find certain players playing certain instruments can be challenging. Pedal steel is one of them. Fiddle is another instrument. Stand-up bass, another instrument. So would that be true for you as well, Dan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even sometimes piano players, good piano players, or synthesizer players.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
people that know how to really use a synthesizer. It takes a little time. You got to be a real geek, so to speak. I know personally because I am one. When I get into, I used to love electronic music, and I did it when I was in high school. And you
Yeah.
really got to be a geek about it. You got to know the
Oh,
filtering and where to punch and all
yeah.
that. So
Very true.
those are also harder instruments. This is some of the reasons why I tried myself to learn all these different instruments.
So
Learn what
many.
everybody knows in the band is like Charlie says.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun to learn these additional instruments on top of guitar itself, and if you can transfer some of that knowledge into that other instrument, less time to learn it, to learn some of those foundational skills, and you can kind of hopefully focus your attention on some of the other things about that instrument. So let's give it to Bruce. Bruce, is what you got there? What is that? Is that an ironing board? I can't tell. Is that?
Yeah, it's a pedal steel. I play what's called a single neck. There's only one neck. I mean, quite a few players play what's called a double neck. The single neck is when it's tuned to an E ninth. It's used a lot for rock and roll and country. The double neck, the first neck is tuned to a C6, which is used a lot for like swing and jazz. But it has 10 strings. It's tuned B, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, B, E, G sharp, D sharp, F sharp. There are three pedals and there are five knee levers. There's a left, right, vertical, left, and right. And each one of those get tuned separately. You can't see it, but on this size of the neck, there are 17 um, nylon nuts that I tune, so I can tune the pedals and the knee levers. It's surprisingly very stable. You'd think I'd be constantly tune it, but it's a very stable instrument. If I were to show you underneath, it's just a bunch of bell cranks and levers, and then on this end there's a bunch of springs, so that if I change the tuning of a string with a pedal or the knee lever, it brings it back to tune. And then, so this is called a copedent. This is my copedent. So you can see this is how it's tuned, and then the knee levers and the pedals. It shows you what the change in the tuning is. It's a cool instrument. I always wanted to play one. I think there's two or three stores in the country, maybe four, that actually specialize in pedal steels. And my wife and I were out in San Diego, I don't know, 8 years ago, and I went to a pedal steel store. And when we got home, she said, why don't you get a pedal steel? I was on the phone, and I've got a pedal steel. It's as Charlie was saying, they're not inexpensive. You don't want to get a student model because you're going to be constantly struggling with tuning it. You really need to get a good instrument. There's not a lot of builders. There's probably only 10 or 15. I caution people to kind of stay away from used instrument. This is kind of I want to say a pro instrument. It cost me, I think it was $3,000. You can get a really good new pedal steel for $3,000. So you've got the three pedals, A, B, and C. You got the knee levers. This is a volume pedal over here, so I can adjust the volume and increase the sustain. I have a real fancy a tuner. It's called a Peterson, because the tuning is pretty, we're talking 10 strings and 17 knee livers and pedal. I play it through that black amp over there behind the mandolin. It's actually a custom amplifier. It's actually a PV Nashville 112, which is kind of the standard, and it has been the standard for many, many years. It's specifically a pedal steel amp, and it's a 112, so it has a 12-inch speaker. I had somebody build me a new cabinet. I put the head from the PV in that cabinet, but I have a 15-inch speaker that's really kind of specific for pedal steel, so I get a lot more noise out of it. It comes apart, the legs unscrew. I end up putting it in like a 76 key keyboard case. It weighs about 30 pounds. Amplifier weighs like 45 pounds. So when I'm gigging, and I do a lot of gigs, it's a lot of stuff to truck around.
What's the setup time on that one?
I'm sorry?
What's the setup time? So you show up into a gig. Do you have to take like what a drummer does, where they got to piece all of these?
It's like I've got it. I mean, I can do it in 5 and 10 minutes. It's real simple.
Oh,
The four legs come off. This bracket down here unscrews, and these just unhook. I mean, it really is. It's pretty quick.
Hey, you gonna play it for us?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. I've never thought of it as a solo instrument. I think it's more for adding substance and backup to other tunes. A big part of it is you get these like what are called harmonic scales. So the nut it's not a solid piece of bone. It's actually they're rollers, because I'm constantly changing the pitch of the strings. So as the string goes back and forth, that way it's not rubbing against something that's solid. It's actually a roller. I actually find it more intuitive than the guitar, and I've been playing the guitar for over 60 years. For some reason, and I've only been playing this for 7 years. And when the guy built this for me, he told me, Bruce, if you practice 2 hours a day for 5 years, you suck. Fortunately, I was hired by a band. I think it was 2 years into the thing, and I was doing 2 4-hour gigs a week, and I had to learn. I had to back up like 64 different songs, so it really upped my game playing out. I mean, I did that for 2 years, and I just couldn't. It was too much. I'm getting home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the places we play, they weren't family places. They were these honky-tonk bars, biker bars. But I'm in 2 other bands now, and like I said, I find it much more intuitive. I'm like, so here's an E. I've got all 3 inversions. So if I take the bar and put it on the 3rd fret, now I'm in G. If I press down the A and the B pedal here, I'm going from the G to a C. If I use my knee levers, I've got a D7. So I kind of think of it in terms of the number system. So if we're going to play something in the key of B, well, I know where I need to start. And I can play a G here. I can play a G here. And I can play a G here. Or I can play a G here. By using the combination of, knee levers and, pedals.
I just need to ask you this. That first of all, you're just getting some oohs and ahs from the audience here. The coolest thing ever from Charlie, and then love the sound from from Dan, I should say. Do you have to do you need a license to play that thing? I mean, it's like you're using hands, knees, feet. Whoa, oh my goodness! How do you learn to coordinate all of those movements?
I think it helps if you have a license to be a helicopter pilot.
Are you?
No.
Okay, but so it's not necessary then. Okay.
I had an advantage in that I've played the dobro for close to 40 years, and so the left and the right hand technique is the same. You're just playing with a steel bar and picks. The difference is on the dobro, it's tuned GBD, GBD. There's only 6 strings, so it's much easier to find the strings with your right hand. The hard part for me, actually the hardest part, I eventually got used to it. The hardest part for me was this thing has tremendous sustain. It just goes on and on and on. So a lot of times you don't want to have that sustain. So I had to learn how to either pick block or palm block to, use my palm to, kill the sustain. Because sometimes you want the sustain, sometimes you don't. I also find my right hand, the tone changes depending on where your right hand is on the neck. So I find if I'm playing up here, I try to play right between the bar and the pickup. I can do harmonics. So what I'm doing there is I'm using the back of my ring finger a couple of frets up to get that. So yeah, it's kind of a cool instrument. So Abby and I talked about Ashokan Farewell, and here's a little trivia. I went to a rock and roll concert or a festival in Poughkeepsie, New York back in the 60s. And there was a really cool band called Cat Mother and the All Night Newsboys. And they had kind of a minor hit called Strike a Match and Light Up Another One. It was like about, marijuana. Well, the guitar player was Jay Unger. So I've won a couple of trivia contests because of that. So Abby, when she played Ashokan Farewell, she's fretting each one of the notes, and I can do the same thing using the bar. But it's easier for me to use the pedals and the knee levers. That's a poor rendition of it, but I think you get the, I'm using my the levers more than I'm using the bar.
These are all techniques that once you learn them, you can actually apply them in place of other techniques, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's the other thing that's kind of weird about it, the top 3 strings are, when you think about instruments, they're kind of tuned chromatically going up, ascending. The top 3 strings here are not ascending. I don't know why. I mean, this is truly an American instrument. Back in the, the 30s and 40s, people played what was called a non-pedal steel or a console steel. So they didn't have the pedals and knee levers, and because they wanted to play in different styles, some of these steels had 4 necks, and each neck, and they were typically 8 strings. Each neck was tuned differently, different keys. I mean, these things, it's like a big table. And back in I think in the 50s, and I don't know who it was, took a console steel and attached cables, and they basically carved up a way of changing the tuning. So that I mean, it is truly an American instrument. It was really developed back in the 50s.
That is such a remarkable instrument. I don't believe I've ever seen a rundown of that pedal steel. I know pedal steel players, but they've never taken me through this little tour. And for those of you who have played the double neck electric guitars, you ain't got nothing on this guy. I mean, oh my God, 4 necks, 4 individual setups for one player. That's amazing. Just amazing. Yeah. Bruce, thank you so very much. This was a real informative overview. In fact, everyone, also, with Abby and with Charlie. And hey, Dan, I know you are the.
We gotta.
You are the. Go. So I know. Yeah. We've run into overtime. We're now at 17 past the hour. We said we'd get you out of here at 15, but let's do this. Let's just talk through some of the subtle differences between a 6-string acoustic.
I can do that.
And a 12-string acoustic, because if there's one instrument that you can likely just pick off the rack. I mean, you already know the tuning. The tuning is the same. What's the tuning difference with a 12-string versus a 6-string?
There's no difference.
There's no difference. How can that be?
No difference.
Yeah.
Unless you're into doing, different open tunings, which you can do that still.
Exactly. Well, let's stick with standard tuning for right now.
About the 6-string, you can bring over to the 12-string.
Isn't that convenient?
The one small issue is you do a lot of downstroke instead of so many upstrokes, because there's a chance you're going to miss the octave.
And when you mean
so you're
octave,
just going to hit, yeah.
Let's talk about, before we take a step farther, let's talk about the strings, the number of strings. There are 12 strings.
Yeah.
And there are some strings that are an octave apart, right? Like the 6th string.
Your 6, 5, 4, or 6, 5, 4, and 3 strings are octave strings. In other words, they're the same. They have the same. They have different size. They're thinner strings. They're, of course, so the tension is tighter on them. That makes that octave to get that pitch. I think I did that right. I don't know. My luthier friends would probably kill me on that one. And then
you won't tell anyone.
Your second and first strings are unison. In other words, they're the same size, but you have 2 of them, so you're getting that mandolin-ish kind of sound.
Almost a fuller sound for sure.
It is a fuller sound. That's the great thing about the 12-string.
Listen to that ring. Chimey. Now with 12 strings, are you finding that you have to apply the same amount of pressure? Or
this guitar, I don't. And this guitar is actually a very easy playing guitar. It's the Takamine CJ72 for anybody that's counting. The neck is a wider neck. It's a 12 radius, if you know anything about radiuses on it. So it's almost flat. It's closer to, the design was likened to a classical guitar neck, where they're wider and they're stouter. The scale on a 12 string is about 1 fret short. It's instead of being 22, it's only 21. it's because of the tension that the strings bring about to the guitar itself. There's usually extra bracing. One of the main problems is that the bridge can lift. Most of them have screws in them now. They used to not.
The lift. Yeah. Hey, so I know you're a lead player. And I know
Yes.
that on that electric
this
guitar,
one is
you are
made to play
bending
lead.
and you're stretching and all. Can you do the same with a 12 string?
But I have very strong fingers.
Okay, for our students out there who are just learning, can you?
For those that are learning, no. And it's if you're gonna get a 12 string, I would say wait until later on your path of learning guitar, if you've had a 6 string for a while, to get the finger strength, and definitely buy one of quality, because in the long run you'll save yourself a lot of heartache because the lesser the cheaper quality, or the cheaper the price, the worse the quality is, and you'll have issues with the neck and the body because of the tension that's here. One of the things that has been instilled in only probably the last 30 some odd years, since the 70s, is that a lot of them now have elongated necks or headstocks instead of trying to crowd so much. So that helps out with the tension.
Very cool. Yeah.
Again,
Hey,
the
and
extra.
in terms of like strings, there are 12 of them. So how is there like? Does it take as long to restring?
Oh my God, that's one
My
of
favorite question.
one of the disadvantages of having a 12 string is to have to change the strings.
Jeez. 12. If you thought 6 was a challenge.
Yeah, and it's not only that; it's getting them wound in, because you're so tight up in the headstock. I personally, I've only done it once, and it's the last
Do you
time
bring
I
it into
did
a luthier too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The strings are also a little more expensive. They're a lighter gauge, though. You want to, at least on an acoustic, 10s. Some people even use 9s.
Nice. Do they break easier? I mean, when you're playing,
No.
do you have? No, they don't break. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to, again, push
Your mileage
to
may vary.
the brand or the quality of the. I'd have to say brand. I'm sure Charlie would say, on bass strings.
Yeah.
Brand.
So, yeah, I mean, for the most part, if you know how to play a guitar, it's an acoustic guitar 6 string, you can carry a lot of those skills over. Same chord
Oh, and the
shapes,
sounds.
tuning
sound
is going to take you
just
twice as
amazing.
long. Yeah. Go for it, Dan. Play some stuff for us, will you?
Tuning isn't that bad. It's just getting those individual strings.
Because they're so close together, you know?
Yeah. So anyway, who was it? It was Pete Seeger had said something about 12 string. It was he always thought they sounded like a bell ringing, or ringing a bell. So, and the idea of the 12 string was to give that shimmer, that bell sound, that chorusing effect, if you would.
Jangly.
So it's got that
Definitely hear
really
it.
full sound. Of course, this is a jumbo too, made with got kind of like Charlie's bass, the flame maple and a spruce top.
Yeah. I encourage you to try. Thanks,
Oh,
Charlie.
definitely.
Hey, so
One thing I did want to say too. There was one thing I did note. because this is actually a newer model. It doesn't have a rosewood fretboard.
Oh,
It's
okay.
laurel, Indian laurel. So it's a little
Different.
bit different. Kind of feels a little smoother than the rosewood, but I love it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and for those of you who are thinking about any of these instruments, do your research online. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to reach out to the instructor panel. Charlie had to take off; he's got a lesson. But thank you all. Thank you all, the
Yeah,
instructor panel.
definitely.
And
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Bruce.
yeah, this has been wonderful.
I had a question. Someone asked, I guess it was Abby, what am I using in my left hand? It's a steel bar it probably weighs, I mean, it's really heavy, let's put it that way. And the nice thing about it is I don't have to push down on the strings. All I have to do is lay the bar on my strings, and the weight of it is enough so I can play the notes. The other thing I do with the steel is I rest my fingers behind the bar to mute the strings behind the bar. And I do the same thing with it. When I play the dobro, I do the same thing, but it's a different kind of bar.
I'm surprised, Bruce. I'm surprised that you don't use the one that has the elongated on it. It's the two stack where you can lay your middle finger on the top of it.
Yeah, I'm just more comfortable with just a standard.
Yeah,
It's
I like the grip because I always lose the big bars.
I don't have any problem with it. I mean, that's kind of how I hold it. But I know what you're talking about. I mean, you can get bigger bars that are like, longer bars that are like this that have that, that groove on the top.
They have a groove on it. Put your finger or an extra piece to it.
Yeah, and you can grit the sides. I use this for the dobro. I use this for the dobro, and this one has sharp edges, so I can do pull-offs. I don't do on the pedal steel. Or I shouldn't say that. I don't do pull-offs. No, I do pull-offs. I should have played. I play Stairway to Heaven a lot on the pedal steel.
Oh wow! What about there's that one note that's in Sleepwalk where it's a harmonic, and I had to actually go to a video to learn how to do that where you can pluck with your right hand to get to the harmonic.
I actually do it with my thumb and my ring
Oh,
finger.
do you? Oh, okay.
So I
Yeah,
do it.
okay.
I do it together.
Yeah.
But you have to find that spot so you get the
You have to
harmonic.
find the in between, the halfway point or 3/4 point.
With your,
It's pretty difficult to do, but once you get it down, and what was interesting on that is I've seen Eddie Van Halen do it when he's doing harmonics. If you
are
watch
watching
once in
closely.
a while on his hands, when he's doing some of the in between harmonics, he's actually doing that little pinch.
Yep.
And it's just hard to get that sensitivity in your finger. So, but on the laptop steel, it was something that I learned how to do.
All right, y'all.
And if
Yes.
y'all don't know the difference between a laptop steel and the pedal steel, that's the difference. Is there's no pedals, and it's
Okay.
just 6 string. It was, if I'm not mistaken, Bruce, they called that the original Hawaiian steel, right?
Yeah, that was back in the 30s.
Right.
There
Yeah.
was a big craze about Hawaiian music.
Yeah.
All right, gents, and Miss Abby, thank you so much, and everyone who has joined us today from the community. Want to let you know upcoming
Good seeing you
events.
again, Abby. Good seeing you again, Abby.
Let me just tell you about what's a couple of events that are coming up later this month. The Guitar Brigade, for those of you who are wanting to learn the cage system. You know the open chords, C, A, G, E, and D. How do you apply some of those chord shapes in other positions of the neck itself? Dave Kraut, Ken Morlino, Paul Lilly, 7/17. That would be July 17th, Wednesday. Make sure to check that out. 7:24 on July 24th, we've got another episode of Songs Sung True. This time we're going to feature Nashville-based singer-songwriter and also a military spouse as well, too. That would be Rachel Harvey Hill. So look for us on July 24th. Check it out all on the Guitar Vets Learning Center. And for Guitars for Vets, for the Guitar Shop, for Daniel B., and for the rest of the crew here, Tom Lamog, Guitars for Vets, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.